Yeah, Vishalaji, you can start now.
Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwar, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guru Namaha, Shri Guru Namaha. Sarvebhyah Namaskara. Atyatanam Samskrita Vaani Karyakramartham Agatavantah Sarvebhyah Krite Swagatam Vyavaram. Atyatanam Srimati Hemalata Ramachandran Sanchali Rupena Asti. Dr. Hemalata Ramachandran is a management expert who has done a PhD in management. Fluent in Hindi, English, Tamil and Sanskrit. She has completed all 4 levels of Samskara Bharathi exam. Owing to her great interest in learning Samskritam, presently she is continuing her certification course in Kavikula Guru Kalidasa Samskrita University in Pune. Swagatam Mata.
धन्यवादः सर्वेभ्यः नमस्कारः अद्य कुमारी प्रकृत्याः कार्यक्रमम् आसीत् सा अधुना अस्वस्था अस्ति अतः तस्याः पितामही मीनाक्षी माता गीतं गायति माता मीनाक्षी वासुदेवन वा गायति वा माता
मीनाक्षी रामचंद्रन सॉरी क्षम्यता हरादि पूजिते शिवे भवानी हरादि पूजिते शिवे भवानी नंदामृता कषिणी श्री नंदनादि श्री नंदनादि संरक्षिणी श्री नंदनादि संरक्षिणी श्री गुरु जननी श्री नंदनादि संरक्षिणी श्री गुरु जननी चिद्रूपिणी सानंद हृदय नील सदे सानंद हृदय नील सदे सत्य सुवृष्टि हेतवेद्व आनंद हृदय निलय सदय सत्य सुवृष्टि हेतवेद्व संततं चिन्तये अमरेश्वर सलिलं वर्षय 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 सा नंद हृदय निलय सदय सत्य सुवृष्टि हेतवेद्व संततं चिन्तये अमृतेश्वर सलिलं वर्षय 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 सा काम पनि सनि नि पमग सा नि पनि त सनि सा गम पमग सा काम पनि सनि नि पमग सा नि पनि सा गम पमग सा गम प गम पनि स सा ni pa pa ma ga sa sa ni pa ma ga sa ga ma pa ni sa ga sa ni pa pa ma ga sa ni pa ma ga amrita shini amrita shini आराधि पूजिते शिवे भवानी अमृत कषिणी नमस्कार धन्यवाद
धन्यवादः माता
उत्तमम् उत्तमम्
उत्तमं बहु उत्तमम् इदानीं श्रीमती लक्ष्मी भगिनी अस्माकं मध्ये अस्ति सा एम्.कॉम् पठितवती तदनन्तरं चेल्लम्माळ् महाविद्यालये पाठितवती अपि परन्तु अद्य सामाजिकसेवाया कार्यक्रमे upliftment of the economically backward children इति तस्याः अधिका रुचिः अस्ति अत्र सा शासनविद्यालये गवर्नमेंट स्कूल ये इंग्लिश भाषा पाठनविषये वा कोलम् इति शास्त्रीयकलायां वा मम पारम्परिक अन्न पुनरुत्थापनं वा इति कार्यक्रमे स्वस्य समयं व्यापयति अस्ति तां सुभाषितं पठनार्थम् आह्वयामि धन्यवादः श्रीमाता
Once again, Lakshmi. Hemalata, you can introduce 2 lines in English also, so that everybody can understand.
Okay, धन्यवादः पश्यामि
Namaste. I am going to present a Subhashitam to you today. We all know Sanskrit is a Deva Bhasha and is one of the oldest languages, and it is a language of wisdom and knowledge. Subhashitam are concise, clever, and amusing couplets. These 2-line verses are full of witty worldly wisdom. They preach the art of living, morality, do's and don'ts in the society. These brainy Subhashitakaras indulge in the wordplay even in their prayers to the gods. There is one playful conversation between Shiva and Parvati with lot of intended fun, as each name of the god signifies something else, a double entendre. The Shloka goes like this. Kastvam shuli mrigaya vishajam neelakantaha priyeham kekamekam kuru pashupatirnaiva drushte vishane. Sthanurmugde na vadati tarurjiviteshaha shivayaha gakchadavyamiti hatavachaha patu vastra chandrachudaha. The translation goes like this. Who are you? Parvati is asking, who are you? And Shiva is answering, Shuli, the one who holds the Trishula. So Parvati says, go to hunting. Again Shiva says, beloved, I am Neelakanta, the one who with the blue throat, and that this also refers to peacock in Sanskrit. So Parvati answers, so make noise like a peacock. Again Shiva says, I am Pashupati, shepherd, the one who takes care of animals. Parvati goes like this, I have not seen any animals here. So Shiva again says, I am Sthanu, a person who stays in one place, also refers to a tree. So Parvati says, tree does not speak. So Shiva says, this is Shiva's prana, meaning Parvati's life, but it also refers to a female fox. So Parvati goes like this. If you are a husband of Sringali, Sringali is also a name of a female fox. Shiva, go to forest, she says. Thus left tongue tied, Lord Chandrachuda be pleased with you. This is the rough translation of the Shloka which I said. Parvati assumes all the Shiva's name differently than how he intends them. Pashupati also means shepherd. Neelakanta also is a peacock in Sanskrit. Sthanu is also a tree in Sanskrit. And Shiva, Sringali, a female fox. I hope this roughly translated verse will help you to understand the random humor and talents of our gifted poets who are unknown in the pages of history. Thank you for listening to me. I will say this verse one more time before I go. Kastvam shuli mrigaya vishajam neelakantaha priyeham kekamekam kuru pashupatirnaiva drushte vishane. तानुर्मुग्धे न वदति तरुर्जीवितेशः शिवायाः गच्छाडव्यामिति हतवचाः पातु वस्त्रचन्द्रचूडः। धन्यवादः।
धन्यवादः माता, बहु उत्तमम् आसीत्। अधुना वेल्कम् अड्रेस् मध्ये मातङ्गी माता आगच्छति। सा शिक्षिका अस्ति, स्पेशली फार् स्पेशल् एजुकेशन् फार् स्पेशल् नीड्स् चिल्ड्रन्। बाल्यकाले एव विद्यालये वा महाविद्यालये च संस्कृत अध्ययनं कृतम्। संस्कृतभाषायां बहु रुचिः अस्ति। कोविदः अपि उत्तीर्णा अस्ति। तस्य स्वागतभाषणार्थम् आह्वयामः। She will be presenting the welcome address to our guests. Mathangi Mata.
धन्यवादः। कार्यक्रमम् एतावत् सुन्दरं प्रस्तुतं डॉक्टर हेमलता जी इत्यस्य अहं हार्दिकं स्वागतं करोमि। Dr. Hemalata ji, welcome you. You had started the program so beautifully. We all welcome you. ईश्वरस्य प्रार्थना शान्तिं जनयति। प्रार्थना गीतं सुन्दरं गायन्तं श्रीमती मीनाक्षी रामचन्द्रन स्वागतं करोमि। We welcome Meenakshi Ramachandran, who had sung the prayer song so well. Thank you, ma'am. Swagatam Lakshmi Raghu, जीवन के सहूल्य प्रस्तुत किया. Welcome Lakshmi Raghu, who had presented Subhashitam. नैतिक मूल्यं पोष्यति Bhagavad Gita प्रस्तुत्य Professor Dr. Sushrutha ji स्वागतम्. Margabandhu Sthothram Asmakam Bhayam Chintacha Ityati Shloka Japahetu Kumari Perundevi ka Hardik Swagatam. We wholeheartedly welcome Kumari Perundevi, who is going to present the Margabandhu Sthothram Shloka. Samskrita Vani Karyakramasya Hetu Dr. Gayathri ka Swagatam. Ativa Adhar Purvakam Vayam Bhavantam Prastut Amantraimayaha. With great respect, we welcome Dr. Gayathri ji to this program. It's a proud and great honor for us, who is going to present the topic Science and Samskritam. We welcome you, Dr. Gayathri ji. Dhanyavada Patram Sambodhishyamanaha Srimati Bharathi Santhaanakumar Ityatra Swagatam. Shanti Matrasya Krite Sivakumar ji Swagatam. संस्कृतवाणी कार्यक्रमस्य सर्वेषां सदस्यानां स्वागतं. धन्यवादः.
धन्यवादः माता. अधुना डॉक्टर सुश्रुता महोदयम् आह्वयामः. ते योगे यज्ञे च PhD कृतवन्तः. He is a PhD. Dr. Sushrutha is a PhD in Yoga and Yajna, and he is presently the assistant professor in Amrita University, Coimbatore. He will be presenting a talk on Bhagavad Gitayaha ko Jnanopadeshaha iti. Bahu samyak vishayam. Atra मुख्यविषयम् एवम् अस्ति. ते 10 वयसः एव तः 12 वर्षेभ्यः अध्ययनं पारम्परिक गुरुकुले एव कृतवान्. तस्य मातापितरौ सम्यक् रीत्या तस्य बाल्यकाल विषयान् दृष्टवन्तः. He has been in this field. I want to tell you that from the age of 10 itself, he has been exposed to our paramparika vishayani. So he is going to tell us about Bhagavad Gita, which is the main, so important book for the Hindus. So we will listen to him now. Welcome you, sir. We will be listening to your Jnanopadesham. Dhanyavadah.
ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसं दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम्। सर्वेभ्यः अपि नमस्काराः, स्वागतञ्च। In fact, Hemalata ji has told that I will give Upadesha. Only Lord Krishna can give Upadesha to all of us. And we are all just the receivers and trying to think what he has said and what he meant actually. So people say Bhagavad Gita is the, people who are from the extreme left call Bhagavad Gita as the book of violence, and Krishna as the instigator of violence, and so many opinions we keep hearing about Shri Krishna and Bhagavad Gita all together. But still we want to make having a mixed perspective is very important. Internally, how we look at Bhagavad Gita is very, very critical. Hence, taking the help of one of the greatest acharyas of this country, Shankaracharya, I will try to present today one of the shlokas from 4th chapter, and which is also a guideline as far as the entire Vedanta is concerned. In fact, there are very exclusive topics presented in different shastras. When we go to Sankhya, we will hear about Prakriti Purusha and Sattva Rajas Tamas. This is an exclusive part of Sankhya. When we go to Vaisheshika and Nyaya, we will hear how to construct the logics properly. And then we have Purumimamsa and Uttaramimamsa to name. So Bhagavad Gita will be part of Uttaramimamsa, which is otherwise called Vedanta, in which there is one specific topic that all the Vedanta Shastras talk about, that is to discuss the nature of Atma. So nature of Atma is nature of reality. So there are 3 types of realities they identify. One is Pratibhasika Satta, then Vyavaharika Satta, and Paramarthika Satta. So Pratibhasika Satta is the world in which the world seems to be real until we come out of that world. For example, dream. Dream is a world. So long we are in dream not seems, but it is real. So long we are in the dream world. And then when we come out, this is Vyavaharika world, Vyavaharika Satta, where so-called in scientific terms, it is called real world. Real world, we all share common experiences. For me, that exists before me is what is computer for me, and as well for anyone who shares this common experience. This is Vyavaharika Satta. But then you go and ask the opinion about the whole world, that we all share common experience, to a quantum physicist. This seems to be something illusory, meaning even the real world, so-called real world, seems to be illusory for one who identifies that one identity across all the universe. So when Vedanta talks about the Paramarthika Satta at this level, it is not the topics to be discussed in common public or common platform. That seems to be quite unrealistic in many cases, that people cannot go to that level and understand. So we need some shastras, some drivers, some areas where the Paramarthika Satta is explained in terms of what we can experience the whole world. So Bhagavad Gita and some sections of Upanishads and other Shastras come in handy to get to know what is the real and how we can understand the intent and the content of the whole Shastric Parampara of this country. So in that specific context, there is one shloka that how, let me present it to you in if I can share my screen. Is it okay that I share the screen?
Sure, Ji.
Okay. But host disabled participant screen sharing iti agacchati. Anyatha aham evamev vivakshami. um, there is one shloka. You all can follow it very easily. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninaha tattvadarshinaha. Tattvam pashyati iti tattvadarshi. The one who has seen that tattva or that reality, paramarthika satta, tattvadarshibhihi. So, tadetat vishishtam jnanam tarhi kena prapyate iti uchyate. Who gets this real knowledge? Or in other words, it's
Screen
called
sharing enable பண்ணிடுங்க.
paramarthika satta. How do we understand? How anyone can understand? So Krishna says, Tadvidhi pranipatena. There are three major features or ascribed qualities that you can see in the devotee or someone who is curious to understand the reality. Pranipatena, pariprashnena, seva. Pranipata, pariprashna, and seva. These are the three main features of one who is looking for jnana. So the questions
சிவகுமார்ஜி இங்க எழுதி போயிடாதீங்க, ப்ரோக்ராம் அங்கேயே இருக்கு.
in the question in the
அவர் கேட்கும்போது பக்கத்துல
sometimes
இல்லாட்டி ரொம்ப அசிங்கமாயிடுது.
விஷாலி மியூட் போட்டுக்கோங்க.
so
கேட்டாரு, can I share screen எனக்கு இருக்கு.
okay. That's okay. Vaishaliji, it's okay. I thought it is enabled, but now I will manage, no problem. So it says Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. Pranipata, pariprashna, and seva. So what is this pranipata, pariprashna, and seva that Krishna identifies as very premier qualities that an inquisitive mind should have? So it says pranipata. So it says acharyan abhigamya pranipatena prakarshena nichaihi patanam pranipataha. Nichaihi patanam. Nichaihi is one who prostrates when one reaches a guru. It is not simply doing namaskara like this. Generally, whenever we want to greet someone of the same age, we say just namaskara. But someone who is actually curious to get knowledge from a guru, it is nichaihi pranipataha, nichaihi patanam. Putting the head on the ground near the feet of a guru is called pranipata. Otherwise, it is pata. Pata is falling, but pranipata is falling and putting the head near the feet of guru is what is called pranipata. And then pariprashna, the second one, pranipataha. Then after pranipata, he asks the question, kaha bandhaha, kaha mokshaha, ka vidya, ka cha avidya iti pariprashnena. So there will be series of questions by the sadhaka that kaha bandhaha, what is the bondage that we all have? If at all there is something called bondage, what is it? And kaha mokshaha, if you say that there is an absolute freedom or freedom from all kinds of bondages, what is it? How do we define that the moksha? And ka avidya, ka cha vidya, what is avidya and what is vidya? These are all the questions a real sadhaka poses when one gets actual devotion to a guru. So pariprashnena and sevaya guru shushrushaya evam adina. These are the three tools: pranipata, pariprashna, and seva. And this is actually reflected in one of the shlokas of Viveka Chudamani, that is again written by Adi Shankara. He says, what is Shraddha? He says, Shastrasya Guru Vakyasya Satya Buddhya Avadharana Sa Shraddha Kathita Sadbhihi Yaya Vastu Upalabhyate. That is called Shraddha. Shastrasya Guru Vakyasya. The words of Guru, words of Shastra is taken by a real Shishya as the truth. There is no other option. If Guru says, if Acharya says something, this is good, something, this is the right line of having questions and asking questions and getting your questions clarified with debate and discussions and all kinds of inquiry you do with acharya. That is what is called shraddha, by the end of which you will get yaya vastu upalabhyate, that brahma vastu tattva will be revealed completely to one of the guru shishyas. So this is what shraddha. And pariprashna, pranipata, pariprashna. Pariprashna is something very, very unique. This is the beauty of that shloka. So pariprashna is asking something by yourself. But pariprashna, when someone says to you, you experiment by yourself, and after experimenting, you get the question. This is called pariprashna. Pariprashna is not by itself, but someone motivates you to do something, and after you experiment with your life, you get a question. So this is one-to-one relation, one-to-one conversation when it happens. And actually, in the style of Gurukula, all the education that we had is only one-to-one. There was no group education ever had in this country. Only the schooling system, when it came into existence, like British came, and it is an invasive methodology, because they wanted to put all the kids of the workers in a big industrialization. However, they want to engage and get all the workers to the next generation. So what became very central focus study was arithmetic and writing and reading skills. These were the three skills they wanted to infuse and inject into the community that existed here. And then how best you can make, you can educate them to get the skills, mathematics. That is how the STEM, or as on today we call it as STEAM education, science, technology, and engineering and mathematics. This is became very mainstream education after 2001, when I looked into the policies we made. When this came into existence in India, only after 2001, when US started to devoid of skilled workers in the field of IT and many other fields. So our education system also brought in this STEM education. And then on, we made into online learning. All these platforms came into existence very double force, with very double force, for this reason. So when you want to see where Bhagavad Gita is speaking, where is pariprashna, is there any experimentation happening other than lab experimentation is there with the modern education system? Is there any inquiry into the self, or inquiry into the nature of self, including what is the mind and what is the experiment, what is being sensitive to the nature outside, how do we treat the others? So these are not part of our education system. So the shloka brings back and anchors very education system that we want to establish, and we want to bring it back to the mainstream. We have to encourage more and more questioning, inquisitive features of the kids within our education system. So pranipata, pariprashna, and seva. And no Upanishad in our culture teacher has simply gave any upadesha, simply gave any sermon and went. Even Krishna was asked 100 questions before he gave upadesha. And finally, even Krishna says, yathechasi tatha kuru. It's not I am compelling you to do, accept, and whatever you want to do, you just do it after accepting. So it is, the discussion will go until the shishya is convinced and accepting what seems to be the experience of the self as well. So this is what one of the shlokas we find it as the guidelines for the today's education system also we can get inspired from. So this is the fourth chapter, one of the shlokas we dealt today. And in Vedanta, this is Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana as the steps, as the process of knowing the Atma Tattva that we will to ponder upon even a little bit. But this is one of the premier shlokas we can, ponder upon. So with this, I indebted it to all the organizers and thank you for the opportunity again. Namaste, dhanyawada.
धन्यवादाः वयं भवतः उत्तमं भाषणं श्रुत्वा कृतज्ञाः स्मः. It is very well said that that today's education system is not teaching us how to know yourself. It is only making us learn everything outside. It is not about what is inside. The other fact that you brought out is there is no questioning. There is absolutely no questioning. If you really go to a classroom, we find that students are scared of asking questions because everybody else will laugh at them. There's a lot of inferiority complex. So there's no looking inside. So that's a very beautiful aspect you have brought out. Thank you very much. Dhanyawadaha. Idanim shloka chanting asti. Asmakam puratah eka lagu balika Perundevi asti. Sa panchamat vayasaha eva. उत्तमया रीत्या मार्गबन्धु श्लोकम् अप्पय्य यज्वेत्र गीतम् अधुना गायति. गायतु बालिके.
பெருந்தவி கேட்கலமா, கிட்ட வந்து சொல்லுமா. ஒண்ணுமே கேட்கல.
கம்ப்யூட்டர் கிட்டக்க வா, போன் கிட்டக்க வரணும்.
ஒண்ணுமே கேட்கலமா. இல்லம்மா, இல்ல ஒண்ணுமே கேட்கல. ஹெட்போன் இருக்கா? இப்ப நீங்க பேசுறது கேக்குறது. கிட்ட உட்கார்ந்து அங்க உட்கார்ந்து சொல்லுமா.
ஓகே, இப்ப சொல்லு.
இல்லம்மா கேட்கல. இல்ல ஹெட்போன் இருக்காமா?
ஹெட்போன் போட
சவுண்ட் ஃபுல்லா இருக்கு, ஆனா கேட்கல.
ஹெட்போன் இருக்காமா?
ஐயா சொல்லிட்டு தரேன். சவுண்ட் ஏதோ கேட்கல, டிஸ்டர்ப் ஆகுது. சவுண்டா
மூஞ்சியும் தெரியல, இப்போ ஃபேஸும் தெரியல, கேட்கவும் இல்ல. இப்ப கொஞ்சம் பரவாயில்ல, மூஞ்சி தெரியுது, ஆனா பேசுறது காது விழு.
சத்தமா பேசணும், சத்தமா பேசணும், சரியா? அம்மா வந்து வா, சத்தமா பேசணும்.
நீங்க இருக்கிற இடத்துல இருந்து வாய்ஸ் நல்லா கேக்குறது மேடம். அந்த இடத்துக்கிட்ட மைக் இருக்குன்னு நினைக்கிறேன். அது கிட்ட குழந்தைய கேட்கலாம்.
வா, இப்படி வா. வாய்ஸ் தெரியுதா? தேடி வாப்பட்டும். அங்க அம்மா சிவனுக்கு கேக்குறதா, அது கேட்கலாம். வா சொல்லுங்க.
மடியில வச்சுக்கோங்கம்மா, நல்லா காது.
ஓகே மேம், ஓகே மேம்.
Shambho Nagade Bade Shiva Shambho Shambho
இல்லம்மா, கிட்ட கிட்ட வர சொல்லுமா அந்த குழந்தை.
வைஷாலிஜி, அவங்களோட வீடியோவை ஆஃப் பண்ண சொல்லுங்க, அப்பதான் வாய்ஸ் கரெக்டா வரும். ஐ திங்க் தே ஆர் யூசிங் மொபைல்.
ஆமா,
இல்லம்மா இல்லம்மா ஒண்ணுமே கேட்கலம்மா ஒண்ணுமே கேட்கல. ஹெட்போன் இருந்ததா போட்டுட்டு அது குழந்தைய பேச பாட சொல்லுங்க. அந்த மைக்
ஓகே
கொஞ்சம்
மேம், ஓகே.
வாய்க்கிட்ட வச்சுக்கோங்க. நீங்க பேசுறதெல்லாம் கிளியரா வருது. ஆனா குழந்தை பாடும்போது ஒண்டி தள்ளி போயிடுறது அது.
ஓகே மேம், ஓகே ஓகே.
பரவாயில்ல, டேக் யுவர் டைம், நோ இஷ்யூஸ்.
பாடு.
அங்கே விராஜத் சங்கம் ஆப்ரகங்காபாணி
இல்லம்மா இல்லம்மா மியூட்ல இருக்கிற மாதிரி இருக்கு ஃபுல்லா.
ஒரு வார்த்தை கேட்டாக்க 10 வார்த்தை கேட்க மாட்டேங்கிறது. குழந்தை ஆடுறது போயிட்டு இருக்கு முன்னாடி பின்னாடிமா, அது காது விழல.
கண்டபதபக்ஷம் பாரகண்டம் மகாயோ மக்ஷம் அந்தாபரந்தம் சுரேஷம் கோட்டுசூலத் பிரகாஷம் பதே மார்கபந்தும் சம்போ மகாடே வதேதா சுபாஷப்போ மகாடே வதேதேஷ சப்போ சம்போ மகாடே வதேதா குழந்தை அழகா 5 வயசுலயே எல்லாம் நல்லா மனப்பாடம் பண்ணிட்டா. மாட் சொல்றா, நம்மளுக்கு தான் காது விழல, நம்மளுக்கு தான் அது தெரியல.
வெரி குட்
வெரி குட், தன்யவாத. உத்தமம் ஆசீத். எல்லாரும் ஆசீர்வாதம் பண்ணுங்க குழந்தைக்கு. சின்ன குழந்தை, இப்பயே ஃபேமிலிக்காரங்களும் அழகா இந்த வயசுலயே எல்லாம் சொல்லி கொடுத்து நல்லா என்கரேஜ் பண்றா. வைஷா இந்த பாரதிய சம்ஸ்கிருதி இந்த ப்ரோக்ராம்லயும் ரொம்ப அழகா என்கரேஜ் பண்ணிருக்காரு. சின்ன சின்ன குழந்தைகள ரொம்ப சந்தோஷமா இருக்கு பாக்குறதுக்கு. தன்யவாத. இப்போ மெயின் ப்ரோக்ராம்க்கு போகணும். We are getting into the main program now. Main speaker Shri Dr. Gayathri Begini अत्र अस्ति. सा संस्कृतम् अथ विज्ञानम् इति विषये वदति इदानीं. संस्कृते व्याकरणशास्त्रम् अत्यन्तं वैज्ञानिकम्. एतत् विषयं दर्शयितुम् एकां व्यावहारयोग्यं परीक्षां क्रियते चेत् संस्कृतं कियत् वैज्ञानिकम् इति अवगम्यते. स्वल्पं वदामि अत्र वैज्ञानिकं किम् इति अहम् चिन्तयामि इति. श्रवणेन्द्रियेण ग्राह्यम् अक्षरम् इति स्पष्टतया जानीमः एव. मनुष्याणां भाषणे अक्षरस्य उत्पत्तिः कण्ठताल्वादि स्थानेभ्यः एव वर्तते. यदि ख इति उक्त्वा तस्य शब्दस्य उत्पत्तिस्थानं किम् इति पश्यामः तर्हि अस्माकं कण्ठात् उत्पद्यते इति ज्ञायते. तादृशरीत्या ख घ घ एवं ङ अपि कण्ठादेव उत्पद्यते इति विषयम् अवगमनाय वयम् एतेषां शब्दानाम् उच्चारणं कृत्वा एव ज्ञास्यामः. एवं रीत्या उत्पत्तिस्थानानि च वर्गः इत्युक्ते तालु च ट वर्गः इत्युक्ते मूर्धा ट वर्गः इत्युक्ते दन्ताः एवं रीत्या कण्ठताल्वादि अपि घातेन संस्कृत अक्षराणां विभागः वैज्ञानिकरीत्या एव क्रियते एतेन ज्ञानेन संस्कृतं वैज्ञानिकम् इति स्पष्टं भवति संस्कृतशास्त्रेषु आयुर्वेदशास्त्रं गणितशास्त्रं ज्योतिषशास्त्रं रसायनशास्त्रे अपि च अनेकेषु शास्त्रेषु वैज्ञानिकविषयाः उल्लिखिताः सन्ति इति विषयः लोकप्रसिद्धः एव like that we have lot of examples. I'm sure Gayathri Bhagini tam vishayam atra वदति प्रश्नस्य चर्चामपि भवति भाषणं कर्तुम् उत्सुकाः सिद्धाश्च संस्कृतप्रेमिणः अस्माकं सम्मुखे उपस्थिताः सन्ति अतः प्रारम्भं कुर्मः अत्र गायत्री भगिनी अस्ति सा संस्कृतमतविज्ञानम् इति विषये वदति एतत् विषये सा एक्स्पर्ट् अस्ति किमर्थम् इत्युक्ते तस्याः पठनम् अपि रुचिः अस्य विषये एव interdisciplinary research in Ayurveda and biotechnology iti nutana vishaye PhD कृतवती. She has completed her masters in biotechnology earlier. She is a sought after speaker, sought after speaker on the subject in most of the education institutions. She is also teaching. We request her to give her explanation or the understanding of how Sanskrit and Vijnanam go together. Begini, Gayathri Begini.
धन्यवादः माता उत्तम प्रस्तावनां कृतवती अतः महान् सन्तोषः श्रूयते वा सर्वैः मम भाषणम् अस्तु Ma'am, can I share my screen?
Madam, you can share.
Sure,
you can try
sure.
now. Otherwise, if you are unable to share, I will make you host so that you can.
Yeah, please do it because it still says host disabled
Okay.
participants.
Okay, I will make you host. Okay.
Okay. श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं पठामि संस्कृतं नित्यं वदामि संस्कृतं सदा ध्यायामि संस्कृतं सम्यक् वन्दे संस्कृतमातरं संस्कृतस्य प्रसाराय नैजं सर्वं ददाम्यहं संस्कृतस्य सदा भक्तो वन्दे संस्कृतमातरं संस्कृतस्य कृते जीवन् संस्कृतस्य कृते यजन् आत्मानमाहुतं मन्ये वन्दे संस्कृतमातरम् नमः सभायै नमः सर्वेभ्यः अद्यतन कार्यक्रमस्य मुख्यभाषार्थं माम् आहूतवद्भ्यः अस्य कार्यक्रमस्य अस्य संघस्य आयोजकेभ्यः सर्वेभ्यः मम हृदयपूर्व नमस्कारान् धन्यवादान् च प्रकटयामि अवगमनार्थं सर्वैः अवगमनमुद्दिश्य अद्य मम भाषणम् आङ्गले भवेत् इति प्रार्थना. So I'd like to extend my warm regards for the organizers of this forum for having given me this opportunity to share my insights and thoughts on today's Shirshakam, Samskrite Vijnanam, athava Samskrita Science in Sanskrit. So I think the title itself is very apt because instead of science and Sanskrit, we've got science in Sanskrit. That's very important to know the difference because Sanskrit is basically the spirit, the original spirit from which science has sprouted. So it is not that modern science is totally different from the ancient language of Sanskrit. Everything, whatever today's modern scientists, modern science claims, credits for them, that everything has already been found in the language of Sanskrit, in all our Vedas, Upanishads, even Itihasas like Mahabharata. So today in my presentation, subject to time availability, I'll be covering, though there are several streams of science in Sanskrit, I'll be covering a few of the streams of science that are given in Sanskrit. And those that find reference in Sanskrit. So first, and also this title I think is very important for today's modern world and is indispensable because we have all run into a major misconception that the language of Sanskrit is an ancient language which is just meant for performing sacrificial rites, invoking deities, performing pujas, chanting mantras, etc., etc. But on the contrary, this language has got to offer multiple avenues which are still open for research, even for future research. So if we just make ourselves aware of what is present in our language, what is present as an asset in our own dharma, and I think that will take us through a long way. So first, talking about the word power or the pronunciation of syllables, phonetics. So this language of Sanskrit is very unique in its way of pronunciation of the syllables, the varnaha. Because, say for example, see the language itself is made in that way. Samskritam means samyakkritam. So that is Samskritam. So it is already very well made. We don't need any manipulations or interpretations, different perspectives into this language. This is already very well made. And the so-called India today, which is known as Bharatam, means Bhasurataha, which means to shine. So I have also listed out some of the other places, other well-known places and their actual original names and the names that have changed in the due course of time. So, in Samskritam, say for example, if I say Swajanaha, so Swajanaha means one's own people, which encloses the family, relatives, friends, etc. Instead of the Sakara, if I'm going to replace it with Shakara and call it Shvajanaha, it means dog people. So the entire meaning changes. So the entire interpretation goes wrong if you just alter one single syllable in this language. That's where the language of Sanskrit is not just divine, but is also very unique. And then similarly, Sukha means happiness in Sanskrit. But if I'm going to say Shuka, it refers to a parrot. So the meaning and interpretation, everything changes. So that's very important to know that the pronunciation of the syllables and the handling the signs of phonetics in Sanskrit is very, very essential to learn it the right way and to understand it the right way. So Mahakavi Kalidasa, who is one of the most renowned Sanskrit poets, has given a shloka called Vagartha Viva Sampriktau Vagartha Pratipattaye Jagatah Pitaro Vande Parvati Parameshwaro. So this is a shloka mostly well known to many of us. So the actual meaning of this shloka is found as a Mangala shloka in his Raghuvamsha Mahakavya. So the poet claims salutations and offers his prayers to Parvati and Parameshwara, who are just like the Vak and its Artha. Vak is nothing but the word, and Artha is its sense or meaning. So the Vak and Artha has always, are meant to be together, inseparable, complementing each other, bound to each other. So they both are very important in any language. And as a proof of it, Mahakavi Kalidasa has given the shloka in Raghuvamsha Mahakavya. And moving on to phonetics. See, Paniniya Shiksha has a shloka called Vyagri Yatha Haret Putram Damshtrabhyam Nacha Pidayet Bhita Patana Bhedabhyam Tadvat Varnan Prayojayet. So this is a very interesting shloka from Paniniya Shiksha. This says that just as how the tigress would carry her cub with all her sharp teeth, there wouldn't even be a little scratch mark on the cub. That's how important, that's how careful we've got to be in pronouncing the varnas or the syllables in the language of Sanskrit. So that is very, who would have predicted that language of Sanskrit would have interpretation on the signs of phonetics, etc. But this is present in Sanskrit. Similarly, from Taittiriya Upanishad, we've got two interesting lines. Shiksham vya akya syamaha varnaswaraha matra balam sama santanaha ityukta shikshadhyayaha. So these two lines, so basically this Taittiriya Upanishad is from the Yajurveda. So this is divided into three different parts. The first part is Shiksha Valli. The second part is Brahmananda Valli. And the third part is the Bhrigu. Now, these two lines are taken from the second Anuvaka. Anuvaka just refers to the chapter. So the second chapter of Shiksha Valli has these two lines. only these 2 lines. So if you ask me, how can just 2 lines constitute an entire chapter and nothing else? Because the depth of these 2 lines play a major role in making these 2 lines only constitute an entire chapter in Shikshavali of Taittiriya Upanishad. What does it mean? So there are 6 different essential elements given. One is the Varna. Varna is nothing but the syllable or the akshara. Swara is the accent. Matra is the pitch. Balam is the strength or the effort put in to pronounce a word. Sama is the evenness of the tone in which we pronounce the word. Santana is the continuity. So these 6 are the essential parameters or essential elements which determine the signs of phonetics. So expounding these 6 essential elements will lead to understanding the signs of phonetics. So this is given as only only these 2 lines will constitute the entire chapter because of the depth they carry in their meaning, because of the depth in what they have to convey. So this is from the Taittiriya Upanishad. So this important is this much importance is in pronouncing of the syllables and words. So moving on to, I've just listed out some of the quotations of great people and great personalities on Sanskrit, because it's always fascinating for we Bharatiyas to see Westerners and foreigners talk about our languages. Only then we try to understand our assets and we try to start interpreting on what our assets have to offer. Until then, we don't even think about that. So this would give us some sort of inspiration to moving on forward to learn more about the language of Sanskrit. So Albert Einstein, who's a very famous scientist, claims publicly that Bhagavad Gita and Sanskrit literature has been a major source of his inspiration for all his scientific investigation and the formation of theories. And then we have Max Muller, who claims to be Sanskrit as the greatest language in the world. And Will Durant, who says India is the motherland and Sanskrit the mother of all Indo-European languages. And Swami Vivekananda, who says the very sound of Sanskrit words gives a prestige and a power and a strength to the race. And Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, who claims the language of Sanskrit is universal and not restricted to geographical locations. And then the former president, Fakhruddin Ali Ahmed, he says that Sanskrit is not the language of any particular sect or creed. It is the language of every Bharatiya. So it shows their commitment and their knowledge on the language of Sanskrit, which makes them talk all these about the language. So similarly, moving on, here is a very interesting research by Dr. Fred Travis, head of the Department of Neurophysics, on Sanskrit and the brain function. So normally the physiological effects of reading and learning Samskritam is compared to the physiological effects of meditation and the physiological effects of reading a modern language. So these 3 are taken into consideration, for which many control parameters are listed. And if you just observe it, after meditation, whatever be the physiological effects and whatever be the brain function, so that correlates exactly with reading Sanskrit. But that is not exactly correlating with reading a modern language. So reading Sanskritam is not alone, something that from a linguistic parameter perspective, but this also gives you a major strength, bodily strength and mental strength, and improves the brain function, which is very interesting. Again, the person who has contributed to this research is not a Bharatiya. So that is to be noted. So I think Westerners are very much interested in our assets than we are. So then moving on to physics. So as I told you, in my presentation, I'm just going to list a couple of streams of science in Sanskrit. So first, it is physics. So here we've got a major phenomena in physics which have reference in Sanskrit. So first, talking about a rainbow. A rainbow is known as an Indradhanu in Sanskrit. So this shloka is taken from Rig Veda. So basically, we know that a rainbow is obtained by the refraction of sunlight, which is listed out in Rig Veda. Suryasya vividha varnaha pavanena vigattitaha karasabre viyati dhanus samsthanaha e drishyante tad indradhanuhu. So this is the reference of rainbow and how it is formed. from Rig Veda. So this is taken from Rig Veda. We all know that Rig Veda is the oldest of all 4 Vedas, and that has to talk about the refraction mechanism in even several years ago. And then another shloka from the Vishnu Puranam, again, which was composed several years ago, talks about the phenomenon of sunrise and sunset. It says, Naiva astamanam arkasya na udayaha sarvada smritaha udayastamanakyam hi darshana adarshanam ravehe. So it says the sun neither rises nor sets, and it's just the mere appearance and disappearance of the sun in one half of the world, which makes us think that the sun rises and sets every day. So this is a very interesting interpretation in Vishnu Purana. And then talking about a major essential phenomena, which is very well known to us in physics, the speed of light. So there is a shloka again in Rig Veda. So here the reference that I've taken is from Sayanacharya's Bhashyam. Bhashyam is nothing but the commentary. So there is a person called Sayanacharya who has done Bhashyam or commentary on Rig Veda. And this is from, this reference is from his Bhashyam. So it says, Yojananam sahasre dve, dveshate dvecha yojane, ekena nimishardhena kramamana namostute. So this shloka is basically a prayer or salutation to the sun god. But you have to notice the scientific information given in this shloka. It says, the sun travels 2,202 yojanas in half a nimisha, that is in half a minute. So yojana is an ancient measurement. We don't use it in these days, but still the total distance mentioned in the shloka is 2,202 yojanas. 1 yojana equals 9 miles approximately. And the total yojanas for 2,202 yojanas, it becomes 21,144 miles. And the time taken is half a nimisha, that is half a minute, which is converted to 1 minute and then to seconds, which is 0.2 seconds. So the speed of value, the value for speed of light is calculated here in miles per second, which actually correlates with the modern value. The modern value is actually interpreted by 2 Westerners, 2 Americans, in fact, in 1887 AD. They are Michelson and Morley, who actually calculated the velocity of light. So if you just check in the ancient value of speed of light with the modern day value, they exactly correlate with each other. But this is actually present in Rig Veda, which is way ahead of what Michelson and Morley had to do. But yet here we are giving credits and acknowledgements to all of everything and of every invention to all the Westerners, and not acknowledging our own assets. So then talking about the origin of matter, which is again an important phenomenon in physics. So tasmadva etasmad atmana akasha sambhutaha akashat vayuhu vayor agnihi agnerapah adbhyaf prithivi. So this is again taken from Taittiriya Upanishad. As I told you, the second part of Taittiriya Upanishad is the Brahmananda Valli. And these 2 lines are obtained from the first Anuvaka, or the first chapter of Brahmananda Valli in Taittiriya Upanishad. So this talks about the origin of matter or the creation of matter. So it says from the absolute cause, space has come, Akasha. And from Akasha, space, Vayu, wind has come. And from wind, fire, Agni has come. And from fire, Apaha, that is water, has come. And from water, Prithvi, earth, has come. So this is known to be the sequence of the origin of matter. And if you just compare it with the modern day value of physics, so the modern sequence of the creation of matter goes this way. It is plasma, gas, energy, liquid, and solid, which is actually nothing but one and the same if you just compare with the Brahmananda Valli first Anuvaka. So all these are present in the Vedas. So Taittiriya Upanishad is a shaka of Veda, Yajurveda itself. So we just think that the Vedas are meant only for spiritual purposes, which is on the contrary, they have to offer so many scientific facts. And that's why most of our saints or sages have been masterminds and master investigators and scientists of those days. So then moving on to the cause and effect phenomena, which is till date a major plot of discussion. So we till date discuss on this, whether the egg has come first or the yehen. So this talks about here is an interpretation of the cause and effect phenomena. This shloka is taken from the first chapter of Vaisheshika Darshanam. So this text is again composed several years ago. So the shloka says, Karana abhavat karya abhavaha, natu karya abhavat karana abhavaha. So what it has to say, karyam is the effect, karanam is the cause. So this shloka says, when there are two things called the cause and the effect, without the cause, the effect never happens. The effect can never prevail. But for the prevailing of the cause, the effect doesn't have to do anything. So that's what is given here. There is no effect possible without a cause. But the absence of effect doesn't mean the absence of cause. The cause is always there. Sometimes there is no effect, and sometimes the effect is very well interpreted or seen. So this is given in Vaisheshika Darshan. And again, talking about varieties of magnets in physics. So, Rasarnava is an ancient text in which, it is actually a 12th century AD text, in which there is an interpretation of the major categories of magnets and their subvarieties and the different colors in which they are available. So here the Patala refers to the chapter only. So Anuvaka, Patala, these are all different names meant to represent a chapter. So the 6th chapter of Rasarnava talks about the various varieties of magnets. So the major varieties or major categories of magnets are Brahmakam, Chumbakam, Karshakam, Dravakam, Romakam. These 5 are the different major categories of magnets, and the sub-varieties can vary from one-phased to multi-phased magnets. And the colors are like, as you see here, Pitam, Krishnam, Tatha, Raktam, Trivaranam Syat, Prithak, Prithak. So Pitam is yellow, Raktam is red, Krishnam is black. So they are available in these 3 different colors. So this is what is given in this Rasarnava. And then talking about the phenomenon of production of electrical energy or generation of electrical energy, which is nothing but electricity. So Agastya Samhita is an interesting text of the 14th century, which gives an interpretation of how electrical energy is generated just using earthen pots, because in those days we don't have crucibles or very modernized apparatus, etc. So the earthen pots were only taken and they were converted into battery banks. How? So as you can see the pictorial representation here, Samsthapya mridmayam patram tamrapatram susamskritam chadayet shikigrivena chardrabihi Kashtapamsubihi is the shloka, which is given as a reference for generation of electrical energy. So here what we do is we take an earthen pot. There are hundreds and hundreds of earthen pots taken. Just don't mistake me if how a lot of electrical energy would be possible to be generated from just one earthen pot. So there are hundreds and hundreds of earthen pots taken for this experimental purpose. As you can see, copper plates are placed, copper sulfate, mercury, zinc powder, wet sawdust. All these chemicals are placed inside the earthen pots. As you can also see here, we have the positive and negative electrodes, the anodes and cathodes, etc., needed for a physical experiment. So with all these, properly placed, the earthen pots are converted into battery banks. That is how electrical energy is generated in plenty. So this is a very good interpretation, which is way beyond the thought of modern science. And then talking about the lens. So aprapya grahanam kachabhra patala spatika antarita upalabdhehe. So this actually is a reference meant for knowing about the lens. So here the definition of a lens and the materials involved in preparation of a lens is given. So what is a lens basically? That which cannot be perceived using the naked eye, can be perceived with something called the lens. So what we do is, there are various instruments or various materials involved in, the construction of a lens, like glass, kacha, abrapatala, mica, spatika, crystal. So these are all different major materials involved in the construction of a lens. So that is given as a reference in Sanskrit. So this is just taken from Sanskrit, from nothing else. And then the property of elasticity in physics. So this is taken from Nyaya Kandali. So you will be wondering, how come the property of elasticity would have been discussed in Sanskritam? See, this is very important to know. They were masters of archery. So for archery, the bows are very, very important and instrumental. So if the bow has to be constructed properly, the property of elasticity has to be followed perfectly, which was known as sthitistapakata in Samskritam. So sthitistapakata is a property. It's nothing but the elasticity. So by virtue of which the bodies resist deformation force applied on them. So once you apply a deformation force, those bodies or objects have to regain their original state. They have to come back to their original state. That is what is the property of elasticity. That is known as sthitistapakata and was used as a reference for preparation or making of the bows, perfect bows. This is from Nyaya Kandali. And then, so those were some of the perspectives, scientific facts of physics in Sanskrit. Now moving on to astronomy in Sanskrit, talking about eclipse first. So we are well aware of solar and lunar eclipse. And we offer our credits of invention of a telescope in 1609 AD to Galileo. But in 476 AD, Aryabhatta has talked about the definition of an eclipse. Chadayati shashi suryam shashinam mahati cha bhutchaya. So he says the moon covers the sun and the greater shadow of the earth covers the moon. In simple words, he has mentioned and defined an eclipse. Now just tell me, if he has not seen an eclipse, if he has not perceived or observed an eclipse, how would it have been possible for Aryabhatta to talk about the definition, that too in a perfect definition of the eclipse? Yet we are giving credits to modern day scientists and Westerners. Just don't get me wrong. I don't mean to demean the modern science or modern day scientists. I'm just trying to convey that in acknowledgement and in appreciation of the modern scientists and modern science, we have literally failed to understand and acknowledge and recognize our own assets and our own saints who have been masterminds and who have been master scientists of those days. So then moving on to comets. So comets, so if you see here, Brihadvimana Shastram has to offer one shloka. Tesham vidyut sammohastu sharadvasantayoho kramat bhavanti aditya kiraneshu antarbhutaha swabhavataha. So this is from Kriyasara Tantram. It says, it talks more about the comets. So you can ask me, what does Brihadvimana Shastram has got to do with talking about comets? It's very important to know, before the construction of an aircraft or an airplane or a Vimana, it's very important to know the spatial parameters, because the airplanes or aircrafts are going to be, going to be traveling in the space. And if you are not aware of the spatial parameters, then it becomes troublesome. So that is, just see how minute those days scientists have been in interpreting the Vimana or in construction of aircrafts. They've all interpreted even a minute spatial parameter and they have not avoided it. So here the shloka says the comets, the influence of the comets are naturally by default present in the sun's rays or the solar rays. But this influence even more rises rapidly in two different seasons. One is the autumn and the other is spring season. So this is what the interpretation of Brihadvimana Shastra goes with regard to comets. It not only talks about it, it also talks about the total number of comets present in the spatial hemisphere. So if you see this shloka, so it is interpreted that more than 30 million comets are present on the total, and out of which 8,000 comets are very aggressive and fearful, which can easily invoke their influence. And 12 out of even in 8,000, 12 out of these 8,000 are even more powerful. So this numerical interpretation, which is very appropriate, has to be coming only from a mastermind. And these are present in Vimana Shastra by Bharadvaja Munihi, who was just claimed to be a Munivar. But he is not a Munivar. He's actually a mastermind. So they have all contributed this in Samskritam alone. And then talking about the moon. So we have 32 satellites, and each and every satellite would be at least 1/8 smaller to its mother planet. But the moon is unique because this is known to be the biggest of all satellites. So here, if you see here, this shloka is a reference from Rigveda and Yajurveda Taittiriya Samhita. Both have got reference to the presence of moon. So it says that the moon being the satellite of the Earth, revolves around its mother planet, which is the Earth, and follows Earth in revolution around the father planet, which is Sun. So it is claimed that Earth is the mother planet of Moon and Sun is the father planet of the Moon. So this is how the revolution phenomena of Moon is discussed in Rig Veda itself, which is the oldest of all Vedas. And now moving on to this interesting yantra. This is called as the Nadivalaya yantra. So this yantra and its construction has got a reference in a text called Siddhanta Shiromani in Yantra Dhyayam 4. So, Siddhanta Shiromani's chapters are known as not Anuvakas, not Patalas, but Yantra Dhyayas. So it's very interesting to know, interesting name to know a chapter. So this is from the 4th Yantra Dhyaya of the Siddhanta Shiromani. So as you see here, the pictorial representation of the Nadivalaya Yantra. So this is basically a circle of wood, which is placed in the sun, in the sunlight. And throughout the circumference of the, this instrument, the circumference is actually graduated into ghatis. And as you see here, the shadow of the ghati will interpret the local time. So this was actually used in ancient ages, which many of us will be knowing, but we might not be knowing the exact name and the reference text, etc. So that is why I've presented it here. This is known as the Nadivalaya Yantra from Siddhanta Shiromani. So this is all otherwise known as the Dhupa Gati. Gati is clock. Dhupa Gati is Dhupa refers to sunlight. So as it stands in sunlight and interprets, and the dial is placed on the plane of equator and based on the shadow of the Gati, the local time is interpreted. So it is otherwise known as Dhupa Gati. And then moving on to next yantram called Shanku Yantram. So this is again taken from Siddhanta Shiromani, but from the 9th Yantra Dhyaya. So this Shanku Yantram is also a circular yantra or an instrument, but this is not made up of wood. Instead, it is made up of ivory. So here, as you see here, there is a stamba, which is placed, which is nothing but a post, which is placed in the center. And this stamba actually talks about, this is called a Shanku Yantra because Shanku means stamba or the post. That's why as it has it in its middle, that's why it is called a Shanku Yantra. So this actually talks about the sun's path and how how can we trace the sun's path, and also how can we know several facts of astronomy from this yantra. So that is why it is present. It is also a very interesting yantra, and the entire construction and usage is given in Siddhanta Shiromani. And now talking about Vimana. Yes. So in 1895, even 8 years before Wright brothers, so we offer our credits to Wright brothers for flying the first aeroplane or the first aircraft. But 8 years before what they had to do, there was a person called Shivkar Bapuji Talpade with his wife. He was actually a renowned Sanskrit scholar. He has referred to the Vimana Shastra by Bharadwaja Munihi and constructed the first aeroplane and flown it in the Chaupati beach in Mumbai. So he named it Marutshaka. So, but we never know such a person. So we never know such an incident took place in 1895. That's where we stand. So Bharadwaja Munihi actually, while describing about Vimana, he differentiates them into 3 different classes based on how far they can fly and based on how what kind of purpose they had to offer. The number 1 is Vimanas that travel from place to place. Number 2 is Vimanas that travel from one country to another. Number 3, Vimanas that travel between planets. So this is the first one. First category is Samanya Vimanam. And the next category is Deshantara Vimanam because they have to travel from country to country. And then is Graha Vimanam, Grahantara Vimanam because they have to travel from one planet to another. So based on these 3 different categorizations, the materials involved in the construction of the aircrafts or aeroplanes were decided, and the complexity of the materials were decided based on the purpose that the Vimanam has to offer. So this was proposed beforehand construction, and then that was constructed. Just look at the masterminds. And now moving on to engineering. So in fact, talking about this, I'm just going to interpret a few concepts of mechanical engineering in Sanskrit. So talking about the basic definition of machine, yantram. So this is from Yantraranava. That is a text that talks about the definition of Yantram. It says Dandaihi, Chakraihi, Cha, Dantaihi, Cha, Sarani Brahmanadibihi, Shakter Utpadanam Kimva, Chalanam Yantram Uchyate. So it says the generation of energy or motion through the continuous movement or rotation of shafts, wheels or wedges is called a machine. So here the shafts or wheels or wedges are called as Dantaha. Dantaha means actually teeth, but here they refer to the teeth of the machine. So that's what is given here. So this is a perfect definition for Yantram or machine in Yantraranava. Then moving on to talking about the construction of ships, the craftsmanship behind ships. So there is a text called Yukti Kalpataru, composed by Bhojaraja. So he actually talks about how a ship should not be constructed. Say, if there are going to see, he says there should be no iron used in joining the planks at the bottom of a ship, because if iron is, iron is imparted in the planks of a ship, which are the bottom part of them, this might expose the ship to the influence of magnetic rocks present throughout the sea, which might, get the ship into their influence of them. Their into the influence of their magnetic field, and this might literally cause the ship to sink. So that is why no iron should be involved in the bottom part of the ships. So this is a wonderful interpretation, which is very simple, yet anyone can understand. You don't need a master's in mechanical engineering to understand this. Yet it is in Samskritam. Yet it is very complex. Yet it is very simple to understand. That's the wonderful part behind this. And then talking about types of alloy. Bharadvaja Munihi in his Vimana Shastram also talks about the different types of alloys, because you need different types of alloys for the construction of aircrafts or aeroplanes. Here he has interpreted 16 types of alloys. So he says Athanamani, Ushmambhara, Ushmapa, Ushmahana, Raja, Amlatrid, Veeraha, Panchagna, Agnitrid, Bharahana, Shitahana, Garalagna, Amlahana, Vishambhara, Vishalyakrit, Vijamitra, Vatamitra. So these are 16 types of alloys required for the construction of airplanes as per Vimana Shastram of Bharadvaja Munihi. So he also says that these 16 types of alloys are made with the help of 3 different metals: Saumaka, Saundalika, and Mautvika. So moving on to metallurgy or the Loha Karma Shastra or the Dhatu Kriya. Dhatu means metal. So that's why it is called as, Dhatu Kriya. So now here we have a text called Rasaratna Samuchaya, which talks about a crucible and how it is constructed. So a crucible is basically a vessel which is used to melt all the metals and remove all their impurities, etc. So this is what we know about a crucible. So this shloka talks about how a crucible is made. Mushnati doshan musha yasa musheti nigadyate upadanam bhavet tasyaha mrittika lohame vacha. So musha is nothing but the crucible or the apparatus. So they say that it is an instrument used to purify metals, and there are 2 different materials involved in preparation of a crucible. One is the mrittika. Mrittika is nothing but the clay. Loham is nothing but the iron. So these 2 materials are involved in the preparation of crucible. It's very simple and easy to understand. Anyone, any Tom, Dick and Harry can understand this. That's the major part behind this language. We think it is very, very hard to understand, and we require master science in that, but it is not at all like that. It's very simple. And then Mahabharatam, which is claimed to be an itihasam, talks about a process called gold mining by ants. See, this is Tadvai Pipilika Nama Udritam Yat Pipilikai Tadrupam Dronabheyam Aharpuhu Punjasho Nripaha. So the Shanti Parva of the Mahabharata talks about this process called gold mining by ants. So in Samskritam, an ant is called as Pipilika. Now what happens is, near the banks of the river called Shailoda, ants started digging out some auriferous sand. Aurum refers to gold. So these sand particles were very powdery, and they had gold particles in them. So they were accumulated around the banks of this river, which was found by the kings later, and they were, given away in charity. So this is a reference found in Mahabharata. And there is one more reference is that these auriferous particles or gold particles dug out by, these ants were also given in Rajasuya Yaga as a gift to the Kauravas when they performed the Rajasuya Yaga by other kings who were invited for the sacrifice. So this much is given in Mahabharata. And then talking about bronze, again Rasaratna Samuchaya in its 5th Patala says, Ashtabhagena Tamrena Vibhaga Kutilena cha Vidrutena Bhavet Kamsyam Tat Saurashtra Bhavam Shubham. Kamsyam refers to the metal of bronze. So bronze is obtained by melting 8 parts of tamra, that is copper, and 2 parts of tin. Kutilam is nothing but tin. So when we melt these two together, bronze is obtained, and this was very well practiced in the Saurashtra region, which is modern day Gujarat. And then talking about the production of bell metal. See, if you look at the bell metal, it is always different. It is hard yet very different than other kinds of materials. For this, Rasaratna Samuchaya says, Swalpa talayutam kamsyam vankanalena taditam muktarangam hi tat tamram Ghosha Krishtam Udahritam. So the bell metal is called as Ghosha Krishtam in Rasaratna Samuchaya. And it says if bronze and a little arsenic disulfide are mixed and heated in a vankanala. Vankanala is nothing but a utensil or a chemical apparatus. So a part of arsenic sulfide is lost in the process of heating, and then a final metal is obtained, which is called as Ghosha Krishtam, which we call as bell metal. So these many references were given in Rasaratna Samuchaya, which is again an ancient text in Samskritam. So moving on to medicine. So in today's in today's world, we talk about something called IVF, in vitro fertilization. If we look into hospitals, the hospitals have all changed and converted their names into fertility centers. In fact, IVF centers, which is in vitro fertilization. In vitro fertilization is a process in which we produce test tube babies. This is something which modern day science and modern medical science claims to be of its own, but it is not. So if you look at it, we have reference for it in ancient ages, even in the Vedas. So the Mitra and Varuna, that is the sun god and the rain god, have poured a common effusion into the water jar, from which Agastya Muni and Vasishta Muni have emerged. So Agastya and Vasishta were both born as test tube babies. In fact, that's why Agastya is known as Kumbha Munihi. Kumbha Jayate Yaha Kumbha Munihi iti kathyate. So he was born from a jar. He was born from a pot or, a vessel. So that's why he was called as Kumbha Munihi. So with keeping these as a reference, so these utensils were called as Vasativara. The utensil that was used to prepare the in vitro fertilization, to carry out the process of IVF and prepare test tube babies, that was called as Vasativara. And even in Mahabharata, the Kauravas of the Kuru dynasty were all test tube babies, keeping this as a reference. So there is nothing that the modern medical science can claim credits to itself, but all these were already, we have history of several test tube babies, very well known test tube babies in our ancient periods. And then moving on to medicinal properties of gold. This is an interesting interpretation of the medicinal properties of gold given by Rasaratna Samuchaya in its 5th chapter again. It says gold has got longevity, gold has got intellectual enhancement. So gold can improvise your ayush. It can impart intellectual enhancement. It is unctuous. Unctuous is nothing but having a greasy and buttery consistency. It is aphrodisiac. Aphrodisiac is arousing or provoking sexual desires. It offers retention and grasping power, and it is curative, which is it can cure several diseases. It imparts digestion, promoting healthy metabolism, and it imparts nourishment to human beings who consume it. So there are several medicinal properties of gold discussed in Rasaratna Samuchaya, which is again a chemical text, a treaty. Then talking about iron as medicine. See, this is very interesting shloka because it says, Ayuf Pradata, Balachirya Karta, Rogapaharto, Madanasya Dhata, Ayassamanam Nahi Kinchidasti, Rasayanam Sreshtatamam Naranam. So this shloka claims Ayaha is nothing but iron. So Ayassamanam Nahi Kinchidasti Rasayanam. It says iron is there is nothing else, not any other chemical that can be compared to iron in being very superior and being very beneficial to human beings. Why? Because it is Ayush Pradata. It increases longevity. Again, it increases Ayush. And Balachirya Karta, it offers strength and virility. Again, virility is the phenomenon of improvising sexual energy. So that is imparting fertility. And then Rogapahattaha, so it can cure diseases also. So these, these are all properties that make iron very favorable and very beneficial and incomparable among chemicals to the human beings. And then talking about Atharva Veda. So most of us, in fact, all of us would have interpreted that Atharva Veda is something which has Bhuta, Preta, Pishachadinam, Prayoga Mantraha, etc., etc. And because we always have an aversion towards Atharva Veda because we actually don't know what is present in it. That's the concept. But Atharva Veda has to talk about, has got to talk about medicinal use of air. We say that, air can become more, both beneficial or even dangerous, depending upon what kind of air we inhale. So here it is told that there are two kinds of winds. Dvavimau vatau vataha sindhora paravataha dakshamte anya avatu vyanyo vatu yadrapaha. So there are two types of winds that blow from the river as far as the distance is concerned. So based on the distance, one blows towards the left side, that imparts strength to people who inhale it, and the other that blows towards the right direction, that will be helpful in curing all the ailments or the diseases for people who inhale it. So these two are different types of winds interpreted in Atharva Veda, and their medicinal properties have been discussed in Atharva Veda. And then this is a very interesting text called Bhava Prakasha. So Bhava Prakasha is actually, it is called as Bhava Prakasha Nigantu because it is a kind of an encyclopedia, which is basically a 16th century text, but it includes each and every single plant known to human race. So it talks about different parts of that plant. It talks about the different properties of that plant and different extraction processes and mechanisms of that plant, etc. Here I've just given a small interpretation from Bhava Prakasha about the medicinal plant parts. So as far as the type of plant is concerned, any plant with thick roots, in that case, the root bark of that plant would be used as medicine, because that will be having the medicinal property in it. And as far as a plant with thin roots is concerned, the whole root is itself considered to be fit for preparing medicines. And for trees with big roots and xylem, xylem is nothing but a small tube-like structure which can help draw water from the roots to the entire plant parts. So that is xylem. So for such trees, the entire bark of the trees are used for medicinal purposes. And for plants with slender or long, thin roots, the whole plant is itself considered to be of medicinal usage. So this is just a small interpretation from Bhava Prakasha. So I think I'll wind up because we have got many more to cover. So I'll wind up with these. Though I'd like to continue, but still I know with subject to time availability. Yeah. So I have presented some of the paper cuttings in Sanskrit here. So there has been a discussion to make Sanskrit as an official language by Dr. Bhima Rao Ambedkar, in an amendment, and that is here, whatever you see or the paper cuttings of, that news. And then, yeah, Samskritam is very much used in speech therapy. So there is I wouldn't call it a disease, that is a syndrome called cleft in palate. So if you see babies, many babies would not have properly formed mouths. So there would be a cleft in their mouths, which would enable them from speaking fluently. So there would be stammering and speaking difficulties in such children. So for such children, Sanskrit is used as speech therapy. And, I have myself seen a couple of children with cleft in palate who have been treated with Sanskrit as speech therapy. And now they are so much fluent because this language is like a tongue twister. If you're just going to talk about different shabdas or different dhatu rupani, etc., it's just like, obviously your tongue is going to be normalized, which imparts so much of fluency in your speech. So it is very fascinating that the ancient language, the divine language of Sanskrit, is used in modern day speech therapy. And now here you have different paper cuttings regarding Samskritam, which is claimed to be the language of future and not just past. And then the different job opportunities which people have got by reading Samskritam. And then, westernized people who have, who have made Sanskrit education compulsory in their schools. So those cuttings. Okay, fine. So here are some surprising facts. Like, there are 2 Samskritam villages in India. One in Karnataka, which is called as Mattur, and the other one is Jiri in Madhya Pradesh. These 2 are exclusive villages which speak only in Sanskrit. So you can, even today, if you go and visit such villages, you can find people who communicate purely in Sanskritam, which is a fascinating thing. I think most villages in India should get an exposure that. So, and then Albert Einstein has conversed in Samskritam, which when he met an Indian scientist who could not reciprocate. How pathetic. So, and Dr. APJ Kalam, when he was the president, he was greeted by the Greek president Pepelius in Sanskrit when he visited Athens. This shows how Westerners are interested in learning our assets. And yeah, so Isaac Newton, Huxley, Pythagoras were all great admirers of Indian literature and astronomy. Even Pythagoras' theorem, which we know today, was known as Baudhayana Sutram, and that was framed several years ago, several decades before the birth of Pythagoras. So as Pythagoras was very much interested in our asset, he was able to reciprocate the idea of Baudhayana Sutram and get the credit for Pythagoras' theorem. And we were not we literally failed in recognizing our assets. That's what put us behind. And Oppenheimer, who was the inventor of atom bomb, was an ardent fan of the Bhagavad Gita. Even today in modern world, if you look at most of the Westerners, they obviously tell you that their major source of inspiration is the Bhagavad Gita. And the pathetic part is that we do not understand, we Bharatiyas do not understand the efficiency, and we do not understand the content of Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita has to offer, has content to offer even to laymen, from a layman to a very, successful person. But still, we don't understand what Bhagavad Gita has to offer because we do not understand or interpret the language of Samskritam. That is the problem. So the language is the problem. So understanding the language is the key to understand our assets. That's what I mean. And to conclude, Natat Shastram, Natat Shilpam, Nasa Vidya, Nasa Kala, Nasau Yogo, Natat Karma, Samskrite Yenna Drishyate. So this is a very interesting shloka, which I very much love. So it is told that Natat Shastram, that is not a scripture. Natat Shilpam, that is not a sculpture. Nasa Vidya, that is not knowledge. Nasa Kala, that is not art. Na Asau Yogo, that is not yoga. Natat Karma, that is not an action, which is not found in Samskritam. Samskrite yat na drishyate. So whatever is found elsewhere is found in Samskritam. But if something is not found in Samskritam, you cannot find it elsewhere, because that is the uniqueness of this language. So with this, I'd like to conclude my presentation. Yet there are several streams of science that are present in Samskritam, which I'd like to discuss, but keeping in mind about the time availability, I'd like to conclude here. So I'd be happy to take up any questions, though I'm not an expert, but still, if there is something to discuss, I'd be happy to take up those questions. Thank you.
Well, I wanted to say the same thing. I want to say anything. I'm seeing a lot of comments from our audience. Many of them are so appreciative. Even I have no words to explain the happiness that we are experiencing listening to you. It is wonderful, so wonderful. I'm sure many of us have a lot of beautiful words to put it in form. And I also want, anybody wants to add to that can do it. Please, one by one, if you can put your hand up, we can just give you chances.
बहु रुचिकरम् आसीत् भवत्याः भाषणं धन्यवादः महोदय अहम् एकं श्लोकं दृष्टवान् श्रीमद् शङ्करभगवत्पादैः उक्तः श्लोकः सर्ववेदान्तसिद्धान्तसारसङ्ग्रहः इति ग्रन्थे अस्ति शास्त्रेण प्रादेशमात्रः परिदृश्य तेर्कः शास्त्रेण सन्दर्शितलक्षयोजनः मानान्तरेण क्वचिदेति बाधां प्रत्यक्षमप्यत्र हि न व्यवस्था। एतेन श्लोकेन अस्माभिः अवगम्यते यत् 12 शताब्देभ्यः पूर्वमेव ज्योतिषशास्त्रे सूर्यमण्डलस्य विस्तारः लक्षणयोजनः इति उल्लिखितः। अर्थात् डायमीटर ऑफ द सन इज अराउंड 13 lakhs kilometers इति। अयं विषयः त्वरया अन्तर्जालादेव निरूपयितुं शक्यते सर्वैरपि। You can Google and find out it is coming to 13 lakhs kilometers. So this was already stated in the Shastras. I just wanted to add this to your wonderful talk. Thank you so much.
Dhanyasmi Mahodaya.
अस्तु मातङ्गी भगिनी वदतु।
Thank you, Dr. Gayathri ji. It was an excellent presentation. Only one thing I want to ask. Are there experts like you who explain all this to children in school? Is there any initiative happening?
So yes, there is a great initiative by Samskrita Bharathi. In fact, I myself have given several seminars and presentations to many schools, school children, Ayurvedic doctors, and college students, etc., etc. So that was a couple of years, I guess. So I've myself given a travel to several schools, travel to several colleges in order to bring an awareness about learning Samskritam and linking it to scientific processes. I've myself done it, and there are several other people who have done it from Samskrita Bharathi, which is a very well-known NGO. So they are doing a commendable service for the language of Samskritam. In fact, I myself is a member of a volunteer of Samskrita Bharathi. So they are doing such things. Yeah, I definitely
Okay.
do.
Thank you.
Madam,
Thank you. Thank you.
You know, these days there is a coming up with this Samskritam.
I will,
Samskrita Bharati, lot of people are learning Sanskrit. It's not, into a particular caste or religion or anything.
Literally, yes.
Yes, so there is a lot
Doing a
of
very
price
commendable service.
yes, price of Sanskrit knowledge, wanting to learn Sanskrit. That has come up, and it is very, very interesting, and makes us very happy. Anybody else wants to talk? Yes.
I will just make a comment, madam. Madam, I am Dr. Vaidiswaran.
Namaste, sir.
Very, very nice. Excellent presentation. Because I also have complained in your line. I gave a presentation in the Samskrita Sahitya Parishad in the Trichy chapter. So I presented the impact of Vedic literature on scientific knowledge and development. But you have presented in excellent fashion. I am being a metallurgist. I work in Bharathi Electricals, and your presentation excellent. So I can appreciate both the engineering side as well as the Vedic side, because I am studying Vedas also even now.
What was your presentation in Samskrita Sahitya Parishad, sir?
So the same thing, what you have presentation, the same thing in another fashion. So how the scientists, where the Maharishis have done, I have told about the mathematics and the physics, what are some of the things you have done. But you have added many things from the Rasa Shastra and other things more you have covered. Very nice.
I still wanted to cover a lot, but
inch by inch, word by word, I appreciated your. Fortunately, I got it thanks to Dr. Tirnarayanan.
Oh, you got the invite from Sanskrit.
Yes.
Thank you.
So very, very nice. I want to contact you, madam.
Tirnarayanan sir was my teacher when I learnt my masters in Sanskrit. I did it at Tirupati Rashtriya Vidya, Sanskrit Vidyapita. He actually taught me a couple of papers. So yeah.
Okay, very nice, very nice.
Thank you so much, sir. I still wanted to include many things, but still,
definitely. But it is
time availability. And today, one day wouldn't be sufficient for it. And I didn't want to rush so many things because people would not be able to understand. It's just not like.
Since I have studied this one, engineering in the metallurgy and other things, I can appreciate the chemistry, physics, the engineering, as well as the Vedic thing. What is the real meaning, literal meaning, figurative meaning? Okay.
We will have a part 2.
Thank you, sir.
Right, as we already discussed. So, and Vaidishwaranji, we would like to invite you in our program as a main speaker in one of the upcoming.
Voice, definitely, madam. Okay.
I think Subhalakshmi ji has got something to say.
Yeah. Namaste. See, I also wanted to say the topic is very vast. I request Mrs. Gayathri to go by each individual subjects like medicine or archery, astronomy, everything, separate topics. Even that requires a lot of time, I understand.
It requires lots of
But
time. That's
still,
the thing.
yeah.
That's
You
a very
can have,
yeah, that's a wonderful suggestion. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll try to
because
implement it.
science is a vast subject. If you
Yeah, that's very vast.
Yeah. This is only a suggestion and request.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
It's I mean, hearing you, it's a pleasure, and you are very informative, and you expressed all your, presented your thing in an excellent fashion.
Thank you very much.
Even the basic people, Samanya Makkal we can also understand, because
that's what is
know
important.
Sanskrit
That's what is
at all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Any other person? Anybody else? Everybody is in
Gayathri, I
smiles.
just have only one question to ask. You mentioned about the 16 types of alloys made from 3 different metals. What are those 3 different metals?
So those metals are like, are in today's world, they are not actual metals like gold, silver, etc. So they are again a combinatory metals. That's why I've not mentioned the name like exactly gold or tin or copper like that. They are not. If it is like that, I would have mentioned ayaha, that is iron, or copper, tambram, etc. But it is not like that. They are again a combinatory metals. And in these days world, we don't have the exact metals. So that's why I've not mentioned their names, and I've just mentioned the ancient names, and I've just left it. So that's because we don't have the exact name of the metals, that they've become again a combination.
Maybe it
They
will
are
be some
not pure metals.
Yeah,
alloys.
true.
Stainless steels, like that ferritic chromic steels, like that one.
And one more question. We have found that the pillar in Qutub, there is one pillar in Qutub which was built during the Gupta era in a non-rusting iron.
Yeah.
True.
We have
any
learned
combination given, because until now no metallurgist can create a similar metal like that, steel,
yes.
iron like that. So in any Sanskrit is any given what combination was used to produce such a non-rust.
If such reference has to be found, it should be found in Rasaratna Samuchaya, which is again a very extravagant text. So if there is an expert of Rasaratna Samuchaya itself, they would be able to find out.
But metallurgy have given some explanation. They have investigated and they have given their own explanation based on our technology in those days.
Okay.
So they also interpret that one. But as
you mean the metallurgy experts, right?
Yes, metallurgy experts. They have got the ancient metallurgy and everything. What you say is still more the best. So the Rasaratna.
Yeah. What she asks is a very good question. So
yes,
any
definitely.
experts in Rasaratna Samuchaya would be able to find such a combination. What she says is right. Till date, no such combination is found in modern science.
But they have analyzed it and then come to some conclusion how metallurgy would have been built in those days.
And also in Vaimanika Shastra, solid mercury was used as a fuel. It is mentioned.
I'm sorry? Mercury was used as?
Solid mercury.
Solid mercury.
Solid mercury.
Okay.
Yes.
That's a new fact. That's a new fact. Yeah, I do not know.
Actually, now scientists are working on to produce, because at room temperature, mercury is a liquid metal. But how could they made it as a solid? Today, scientists are working on that. But recently, I went to a temple in near Dindukal. There, in the temple, the pujari was selling vigraha. That is like Shivalinga. We have mercury Shivalinga. It is a solid.
In many temples, have mercury Shivalinga in.
No, mercury plays a major role in Samskritam itself, because in Samskritam, in Rasaratna Samuchaya, it is referred to as Rasa Bhairava, because it is the chief of chemicals. So in that way, it is called as Rasa Bhairava. Yeah, mercury has got a lot to offer.
It turns all the things into amalgam.
Thank you so much for your presentation. It's phenomenal and it's mind-blowing. Thank you so much. I think anybody has any other questions?
Question or comment?
Not, I would take leave.
Yeah, okay. Actually, she just delivered a new baby, baby girl. It's 45 days only. And
she's now 60 days. 60 days old.
60 days. She especially thank Gayathri ji for coming all the way and giving a wonderful presentation. And
Thank you very much. Thank you all.
बहवः धन्यवादाः भगिनी
धन्यवादाः
भवत्याः भाषणं श्रुत्वा वयं धन्याः स्मः. Vote of thanks will be proposed by Bharathi Santhaanakumar Bhagini. Just a word of
Namaste. I'm Bharathi. I'm just have a few vote of thanks, but they all have given a note of thanks to your lecture. So I don't think even the topic was like Vainyanika Kshetre Samskritasya Bhagam Kim iti Sarvam iti vayam avagantavantah.
Satyam.
Yeah. Still, I do have prepared for your special note of thanks. Let me read it.
Please.
Okay. So इदानीम् अस्य संस्कृतवाणी कार्यक्रमस्य धन्यवादसमर्पणं करोमि अहम्. वयम् अद्यस्मिन् कार्यक्रमस्य अन्तिमभागे स्मः. अस्माकं कार्यक्रमे अतिथिरूपेण भागं स्वीकृतवती डाक्टर् गायत्री. सा वेदिकाम् अलङ्कुर्वन् वैज्ञानिकक्षेत्रे संस्कृतस्य भागं सर्वम् इति उक्तवती. तस्याः कृते संस्कृतवाणी पक्षतः सविनीतं धन्यवादान् समर्पयामि. एवमेव भगवद्गीतातः उदाहरणं दत्त्वा पाठयित्वा अस्माकं सम्यक् मार्गदर्शनं कृतवान् डाक्टर् सुश्रुत महोदयः. तस्यापि सविनीतनमस्कारान् समर्पयामि. सुष्ठुभाषितम् उक्त्वा अस्माकं मार्गदर्शनं दत्तवती लक्ष्मी रघु. तस्याः अपि अस्माकं पक्षतः विनीतः धन्यवादः. मार्गबन्धु श्लोकम् उक्तवती सा बालिका, दो द ऑडियो वास् नाट् वेरी क्लियर्. तस्याः कृते अपि संस्कृतवाण्याः आशीर्वादः. अन्ते सर्वान् क्षमाप्य अत्र उपविशन्तं श्रोतारन् सर्वेभ्यः अपि मम नमस्कारः. Thanks a lot. Personally, I thank you very much, as I think I still will get some rays of hope for my 10th doing son and 12th doing son. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being the excellent speakers and excellent listeners. Our audience were the best. They were very, very curious to learn more and more things. It was a very informative session for me also. Dhanyavadaha. Namaskar. Sarvebhyah namaskar.
Now we'll go for Shanti Mantra by Ashok Barji.
Ashok Kumar will be reading the Shanti.
Sivakumar ji, unmute pannikom. Unmute, please.
Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kachyat Dukhavag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaskar.
Dhanyawad. Bharathi, all. You can leave the meeting, I think, Bhagini. Shall I leave?
You can stop the recording, Ashok Barji.
Hold on, please.